good evening, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Upfront Mind, Body, Soul podcast, where I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Bolden Hammond. And listen, we have been talking about all things of the mind, the body, and the soul. And tonight I have a special guest with me who is a new and upcoming author. Julie Schaeffer is here. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks.
Yes, Julie is coming to us tonight. We're with her newest book, which is called All the Lives in Between. So yeah, look, I love it. I love it. She's doing it. She's doing it. So one of the things is I've met Julie through another mutual friend. I think it's been like 2.5 years. I went to her beautiful, where she lives near the water, and everyone knows who follow me know that water is my favorite thing, and watching the skies and all that. So I will let you know that she does some awesome pictures that you would love to see, where she takes the moon, the skies, the nature, all of that stuff that we need for our mind, body, soul connection anyway. But Julie, I want to say thank you for saying yes, for coming on tonight. And we're going to dive right into what are we going to talk about your newest book. So give the audience just a little taste about who you are and what do you do?
Well, I'm a retired school counselor. I worked with Kent County Public Schools for 15 years and was a postal employee before that. And I've just, over my whole life, always been interested in near-death experiences and past lives. And then working as a counselor, I got more, I really care about things that have to do with grief and trauma and addiction and those things. So I kind of took everything that was important to me and threw it in a book. And it's fiction, but it's based on things that I believe do happen and have happened. So that's where we are now.
So we're talking about near-death experiences, and then, some people might, and then I love the way that you have a twist to the book, and we'll get into a little bit of that later. But what inspired you to write about this near-death life experience?
Well, I got really sick at one point, and I was stuck at home, and I kept thinking about all this, and I thought, well, this is the time to do it. And I just felt like I wanted to tell a story. Somebody I knew when I was about 20 had a near-death experience and shared that with me. And it really changed me. And then when I was in high school, and all-girls Catholic school, we had a class of comparative religions. And when we talked about Hinduism and different religions, reincarnation came up, and I thought that makes so much sense to me. It just always felt right. So I've always read things about both of those topics, and I belong to a group, and we meet once a month on Zoom, and we discuss different near-death experiencers and what happened, and we interview them, or sometimes we just watch a video, and then we all discuss it. So it's just always been something that I was interested in.
And it's funny that you say that about reincarnation. A lot of people had their different faiths, different beliefs, and different things like that. And what I liked about it that you said, that you have this group. So it would conduce someone who feel as though that it's a group, but you're telling the story, right, of the conscious. But at one point in time, you would still remain in conscious, because there's a lot of studies. And I know that there's a lot of studies that are done comparing, the near-death experiences. There actually has been some stories that's been true and documented. But that's good that you have a support group. And how often do you meet, Julie?
Once a month.
Once a month. And is it people from all across the U.S. or internationally?
It started in Chestertown, Maryland. And then when COVID came, they started doing it online on Zoom. And now that that's happening, we can have different people participate that aren't from the area. David David Lamott is the man that leads the group, and he teaches a class at Washington College about near-death experiences and consciousness. And it's getting more popular all the time. And some of the people that took his class are now in our Zoom meeting group. So it's, we're open to anyone as far as I know. Yeah, David has done years and years of research, and he attends the IANS group, the International Association of Near-Death Experiencers, and there are groups all over the country that meet and discuss all these things, because there are a lot of people that have had these and they felt they couldn't talk to anybody about them. So it's good that they have a place.
And see, that's good, because that leads us into the next question that I was going to ask you. You know, you're doing your research. You have attached yourself to Washington College, which is in Chestertown, which is a liberal arts school. A lot of people don't know. It's just something about that little town would make you think that is that is some sort of a start in Chestertown on here on the Eastern Shore, about the area, even the whole little area. That I even went to another part that I had no idea until like last 2 years ago. That's outside of Chestertown. That I had it's a beach there. I had no idea. I had no idea that was there. And that little town, it reminds me of a small governed town as well. So yeah, it's those little pieces. And you always say it's the stories. It's little stuff that floats around there. It's about the storyline. So when you're navigating, you have done your research in navigating this experience of near death. Like you said, you had someone who you knew who told their story. So for the audience, Julie, if there was someone who's contemplating, and I know a lot of things have happened, people have had surgeries, because I know I feel groggy when I get up from when I done had past surgeries. I'll be like, and you be like, you're like dreaming. But what could be some of the indicators or signs that someone has had a near life experience or a past life?
Well, a lot of the NDEers will describe things that they saw, you know, like their spirit kind of rose above their body and they see their body wherever it is, hospital, ambulance, wherever. And then they see other things, like in the book, the example was the wife was in the chapel praying and he saw that and heard it and knew the words. There are examples where somebody saw a relative on an airplane coming to visit them. And there are things like that that they document, that there's no way this person could know that in that state. And a familiar theme is the light. You know, they see the bright light. Usually there's maybe an angel or just kind of a God energy, divine energy. But as far as I know, all of them, or 99% of them, come back and say, I am not afraid of death. It is just beautiful and wonderful, and there is nothing to fear. And that's different from dreaming, you know. So yeah, there's a lot they've documented, you know, millions and millions of these histories.
Yeah. So and that's what I was getting ready to go into, because you know, most of the time when people talk about they had near death, there's a white light. You know, it always often, and I'm just gonna tell my age. Maybe some people who be watching, you can remember. I used to love the show Touched by an Angel.
Yeah.
I used to love that show. And when you talked about how you got into the research, it made me think about that. And then from story tales of some of my older folks that I grew up around, they used to talk about signs about mom or papa. We would smell smoke in the room, and we know that was papa in the room, or you know, different things like that. But then you have some folks who be like, you're entertaining not something that you should be entertaining. But how do we know? You know, how do we know? You know, how do we know? And like you said, the documentation. there is always science behind things. I always try to tell people, you talk about, because again, everything is energy.
Yeah.
Everything is energy, frequencies, sounds, you move around, and they said when you leave from here, you just an empty shell, right? So where does the spirit fly? Where does the spirit go? So people need to, it's a lot of education, not trying to change anybody's belief, but there are a lot of scientific things, especially when it comes down to the NDE, as you said. So when you hear that word, NDE, near-death experiences, so we're teaching something tonight. So
we're out-of-body experience kind of, to me, makes more sense, because these people near death, they really, truly, there was a clinical death. Their body was dead. So it wasn't near, and I don't know how that all happened, but it's the same thing, an out-of-body experience. Yeah.
Right. So, Julie, we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit of your book. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to another episode of the Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul, where I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Bolden Hammond. And listen, I am here tonight with new author, All the Lives in Between. Julie Schaeffer is here tonight. Yes, and what we're going to do, I'm glad you're doing that, because we're actually getting ready to show you where you can go and purchase this book. If some things that you've heard, or maybe you have heard a story about someone who had an NDE, which is the acronym for near-death experience, or an associated with past lives, because we do know that some people actually believe in the reincarnation. I actually look at nature, because when I ask that question about different ways that you can simplify, when you ask about nature, I always think about dragonflies.
Yeah.
I always think about dragonflies. And one of the significant things that if you look at, because I'm always looking into different reasons spiritually about different things when you encounter different things. So for instance, experience of looking at dragonflies, that's actually, they're saying someone who has passed on is trying to connect with you.
Yeah. And I have a great story about a dragonfly. I had a photograph of one that I gave to a friend because her mom had passed, and I had talked to her mom before she passed, and I said, Linda, tell me how you're going to say hi to me. Pick a creature, an animal, an insect, something. And she couldn't think of one. I said, well, how about a dragonfly? She said, okay. So after she passed, I had this photograph, and her daughter wanted to buy it. It was being shown at an art place. And so after it was shown, then I saved it for her. And on the way back from picking it up, a dragonfly came onto the windshield of the car. And it was just sitting on the windshield, like you couldn't miss it. So I emailed the daughter and told her about the dragonfly, and her and also her sister. So then one of them emails me back and says, Julie, after I read the email, I realized I was at work and I forgot something in my car. So I went out to get it, and a dragonfly landed on me. And it was just, all those so-called coincidences are,
Right. I mean, again, people believe what they want to believe, but I always believe in messages. God does send messages. And just like to share with your story about the dragonfly. I say, I had no idea you was going to talk about the dragonfly. I had no idea, but look what happened. See, that has been when I know that and it's always funny when because I know my dad, me and my dad were very close. And when I'm really feeling something, and then just to let him know, because that was my safe haven. So that's how I know when it comes around. Or for instance, I do those retreats, right?
Yeah.
So we did a retreat down by the water, because water is good for me. And one of the things that I had put out in the atmosphere to everyone who was there for the retreat that day, I was like, well, we're going here. We're going to release things. And we walked to the beachfront with nothing. On our way coming back, everybody kept saying, oh, I see this white feather. I see this white feather. Everybody had encountered, we walked the same path that we walked before, but then all of a sudden these feathers just start dropping, and everybody started seeing it. And then when I looked up the significant signs of that, that was just telling you that the good fortune and God was shielding you, and he heard your message. So I look at those type of things in the realm of spirituality too. So yeah, so we know when you hear of someone's near death, they're particularly telling a story, but the important part of it is they're talking to you now in the conscious mind. If you, like you said, you seen them, they see the bright lights, they see, they feel certain things, they look at certain things, they can actually look about what's happening, how the person emotions and feelings, and they actually can feel these. So it's a very unique study. But in your book, so let's show your book here. You showed it up, but I'm gonna let the audience see it as well. So it's a book, and I actually read it. And
I really made a point of making all my characters diverse. Like, that was important to me, to include, well, as many different types of people as possible.
And that's who Julie is. I will tell you, she is all about the DEI. So
Yeah.
she's all about the DEI. So this is, look, I want you to go, if you want to know, you want to hear a nice story about NDE or something from past life, this is where I want you to go. I want you to go, as my favorite friend, sister friend, Victoria says, go buy 8 of them. Because what will they do, Julie? What will these do for someone? What will these make?
I feel like for some people that have had experiences, it sort of gives them confidence and permission to talk about it and know that there are lots of different people that, believe that. And also because I sort of touched on addiction and depression and trauma, people might see themselves in some of those characters. And mostly I just want people to go, I never thought about it that way. I wonder if, that's all. And the thing is, I feel like both of these things, they're not the opposite of any religion. You can be any religion and still believe in past lives, still understand about out-of-body experiences. It doesn't go against any religion that I'm aware of. So yeah, it's kind of a feel-good thing by the end of it. And it really explains how hard it is for people of color in particular to do their genealogy. It's getting better now. There are, more methods, but in the 70s where this book took place, you couldn't just Google things. So it sort of showed what they went through to do research, and they wanted to prove or find more facts that this past life actually happened. So yeah, there's a lot to it.
So yeah. So one of the things I want you, like you just said, us into the last question for tonight. So as you said, you compiled this story because of one, you've been doing some research and you've been entwined into this. So I love the fact that the story that you had was from two different centuries. Like you said, 1720, then 1970. But the comparison is how the 1720 actually did something, but then in the 1970, they actually became back returned of a person who was a heart surgeon. And we'll just leave it like that. So if you want to know more, you have to go get the book.
And if you go to Amazon, there's lots of 5-star reviews. It seems like a lot of people are enjoying it. So yeah, I hope everyone does. And I'd love to hear feedback.
Yes. So Julie, I think this is it's very nice for me, advice for me too, because I just recently released a book last month based upon using different people from different media methodologies of different types of healing remedies. There's people who have all types of practices, but I thought it was, and I see what you're doing. I think it's more time to get people more awakened about what's out here. Everybody has their own different types of beliefs, but I believe that you need to combine and figure out, look at what's going on, make up some strategies about like what's going on, what people different reflections. It's not that you have to indulge in everything, but what I did was put a whole group of different women who have different practices of how they produce their own healing. But the one thing is unified is that the remedies work for healing. So that was one of the things that I liked about it. All of us came from different backgrounds, but again, it was about the storytelling, telling the story, how you became and how you this is part of your lineage. This is part of your heritage. It's really good, but I appreciate you for putting this out here because people need to know, because a lot of people got trauma, and I'm glad you brought that up. Through trauma, that's something that people don't really realize, that you seeing so much about the somatic stress and stretch and all that type of stuff, but everything that you go through life is stored in your body. So one way that those near-death experiences may be coming out is due to the factor of what's been stored in your body during that is releasing during the near-death experience.
And also for the past life, when people go under hypnosis to find a past life, a lot of times people with phobias, a fear of something that's not a real logical fear in this life, like it just doesn't seem to connect. And then when they do a regression, they sort of find out why. And just understanding that gives them a lot of healing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I greatly appreciate you, Julie. So if anybody, I appreciate you for coming on tonight, sharing your experiences, sharing your book. And look, we listen, we look to have you come back again. Is there going to be any possibility for a book 2?
One person said, I want it to be a trilogy. And another one's like, I'm waiting for part 2. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was so much work. But I've got ideas in my head of where the second book could go. So it's possible. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You might have to do a little mini conference on it.
Yeah.
I'm pushing you.
Got a great story to tell you about how some inspiration came to me. But also, Michelle, I want to say congratulations to you on everything you've been achieving in the last few years, and
thank you.
The way you are using yourself to help others.
Thank you.
What you do.
Thank you. So again, I have to come up there again for that water. Come to get that water shot before the fall. Come up there and do a sound session. Yes, again. So most definitely. But again, audience, if you think you have any questions, read this book. This will be some way for you to get some directions. But I also want to say, audience, we had the favorite saying here. If you feel that you're not loved, just know that you are loved here at the Upfront Mind, Body, and Soul podcast. Until next week, I'm your host, Michelle Bolden Hammond. Take care.